Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. Today is Friday, May 31st, 2013. I'm Darko. Hope you guys are doing well. We're getting another storm here today. It's probably about at least the 7th day in a row that we've gotten rain, heavy rain here in the Midwest. So I'm starting to feel like I'm living in the Amazon or Seattle or something, but it's completely unnatural, and it's part of an engineered weather modification program. I don't know if it's just a side effects of the spraying, but either way, I see spraying going on and I see rain every day, so it makes me feel how much power I have over my life, It really does. There's so much power and freedom in this world that we can't stop, these planes from spraying chemicals on us. Well, the first video I have for you, of course, is regarding Syria and what's going on over there. I'll have, about 4 videos today, maybe 5 again, so, and the link should be posted probably by tomorrow evening, so if you really need to see the article, you can spend a good 20 seconds, type in the headline on a Google search, and you'll find it. So, balance of power in Syria shifting Assad's way. So, as hopes for a Syrian peace conference fade, the opposition falls into growing disarray. So again, this is just going to be complete propaganda. The terrorist sects that the West and the Gulf states are arming and funding and training and all that, and completely openly backing, they can't come together on any sort of terms to even show up to this quote peace conference. So Syria said they'll show up, but of course they're going to try to force them into doing what? Into signing contracts or agreements that they have to present it to their people in referendums and have them vote on it. But they want to have all these everything set up for them to just say that you're going to do this. Your leader's going to step down. You're going to take these things. So they're going to go, and I guess they're just going to humor them, and it's probably going to piss them off that they're even going to show up. But it's going to be basically a melee between U.S. and Russia. What is happening now is not a shift in tactic from defense to attack, but rather a shift in the balance of power in favor of the armed forces. So one of the things that they attribute to is no longer defecting soldiers. Also, there's a lot of people that I watched the interview with Assad, and he said that there was a lot of people that were kind of duped by the revolutionaries, and then they eventually put their arms down because they realized who was actually behind the quote opposition. There was a bunch of terrorists, so they don't have as many terrorists running around, but they still have a lot. He says there's no doubt that events have unfolded. Syrians have been able to better understand the situation and what is really at stake. So Assad says Hezbollah fighting Israeli enemy and confidence in victory is definite. So goes on and says if we didn't have confidence in victory, we wouldn't have had the ability to remain steadfast and continue in the battle after 2 years of international and global aggression. So see, the outside powers keep calling it civil unrest, but he calls it what it is, which is basically years of international and global aggression. And he also says Israeli aggression as well, by saying Syria will remain as it was and even more than before, supportive to the resistance and resistance fighters in the whole Arab world, indicate that Arab people are becoming closer to the choice of resistance against Israel. He pointed out that there has always been arms deals between Russia and Syria, and neither Zionist Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to Moscow nor the ongoing crisis would affect their implementation. Kind of an important part here. It says we cannot separate between what was recently raised about Hezbollah from Al-Qasir battle and from the Israeli attack. He said here that, especially after the last speech for Hezbollah, Arab and Western media brought up that Hezbollah fighters were fighting in Syria and defending the Syrian state. Of course, in their language they say regime, but we say state. There isn't a regime. They said, let's talk rationally. If Hezbollah wanted to defend Syria or the resistance, it would send a number of fighters. It says how many would it said? Hundreds. It says 1,000, maybe 2,000. We're talking about a battle which includes hundreds of thousands of the Syrian army, tens of thousands of terrorists, and if not more, 100,000. More than 100,000 if they are still increasing. This means that sending terrorists from neighboring countries and countries supported from abroad is still taking place. So the number which Hezbollah could send to defend the state in its battle compared to the number of terrorists and army and compared to the size of Syria does not protect a regime or a state. So this is something that I saw. He confirmed when I was watching the interview of what I thought, which was that kind of the trick with Hezbollah, and it dupes a lot of people. And the Syrian armed forces, they were doing their own battles. They won all this stuff on their own. Of course, all of a sudden, Hezbollah comes out and starts taking all the credit. So he says, if they said it was defending the state, why today? Why the timing? The battles begun after the month of Ramadan in 2011 until the summer of 2012, and they started the battle of liberating Damascus. Why didn't we see Hezbollah in Damascus and Aleppo, where the largest battles took place? He said, but they showed up in Al-Qasir, which is a small city. He says that it's a border town, it's strategic. He says all the borders are strategic for the terrorists. All the borders are used to smuggle terrorists and arms. So all the titles posed about Hezbollah's participation is irrelevant. He said all this was aimed at strangling the resistance of the Syrian army and the Syrian state. It did not have anything to do with defending the Syrian state, as the progress you mentioned had many achievements in Aleppo and other places, but we didn't hear wails then. He said here that I reassure that the battle, the developments of Al-Qasir, and all the wail we hear are related to Israel. They want to strangle the resistance. He says this old new battle takes in each time a different shape. So it says here they want to basically strangle the resistance by land and sea. An important thing that he mentioned too was that he said that they can never really cover the whole entire country with their forces. They have to move from one place to the next place, next place to the next place, and quote cleanse different towns. And in the West, they know this, so they're constantly trying to get terrorists coming in from Turkey, coming in from Iraq, coming in from Lebanon, coming in near Israel. Constant pressure. He said, why is Hezbollah present on the borders in Lebanon or in Syria? He says, because the battle is against the Israeli enemy and its agents in Syria or in Lebanon. So, of course, by putting all this credit into Hezbollah's hands, then, of course, that ties it in with Iran. Yeah, they keep putting out these articles about how about Hezbollah is operating inside Syria. But in regards to Israel, I remember hearing on a radio show yesterday by, it was a Christian radio show, and they were in typical Zionist talk, a Christian Zionist talk, saying how Israel's under direct threat, and that they were talking about the Golan Front and how there's enthusiasm, Arab enthusiasm, it says here, towards opening the Golan Front for resistance. They said there's people that want to join and fight Israel. And of course, now all of a sudden, they said in there, and of course, whatever happens, of course, Israel is going to be blamed. So, and lastly, he kind of took a jab at Lebanon, saying that they're not actually doing enough. The UN says most Syrian rebels don't want democracy. Rebels grow more radical as war continues. A new report from the UN warns that despite these protestations that Syrian rebels are angels, there is only a very small minority of secular rebels still hoping to create a democratic nation with rights for religious minorities. NATO Secretary General rejects Western military role in Syria. Try to go down here. Okay, so he says no direct military role in Syria for the alliance and warned against any stepped up Western military involvement. Basically saying that it can't be a military win but a political win. Syrian rebels spurn peace talks, issue more demands, won't even consider attending unless Hezbollah withdraws. So the next month's Geneva conference looks like it will have to do without the rebel Syrian National Coalition after announcing they would take part last Friday, then saying they had decided Wednesday. Now they say they won't be there. It says here, Syrians' lives are more important than any political solution. Says the head there. In the end, the Geneva conference seems like to center around the U.S. and Russia debating a settlement to someone else's war with no way of actually making the deal happen. What's interesting, Assad also talked about was the representation of the flags, how these different flags would be represented had they shown up, saying that, well, he doesn't really mean anything, because flags don't mean anything if it doesn't represent the people. Or the flags, if they don't represent something behind them, basically. And what he was saying was that when most of these opposition figures go back to wherever they go back, they'll be staying at 5-star hotels sponsored by their supporters or Western supporters, and file into the State Department and go back over to some cave in another country, because a lot of them are foreigners, whereas they're going to all be going back to Syria, where they have majority support. Irked by Syrian opposition's disarray, U.S. withholds millions in pledged funds. So they're withholding $63 million it is pledged to the main Syrian opposition because the Obama regime is frustrated with the group's disarray. So there you go. You have, basically Syria and Assad basically speaking out that it's being known by the West that they're winning. They're not going anywhere. I just talked about the intelligence reports by both Israel and Germany, probably the same, saying that he's going to be holding out for a little bit longer, a lot longer than they thought. They're withholding funds. The terrorists can't get their unity thing going. So a lot of changes here. EU allows banks to open accounts for Syrian rebels. European banks will be able to open branches and accounts in Syria for use by the terrorists. So they're relaxing economic sanctions to help the rebels fighting to overthrow their government. Syrian militants in need of ammunition, heavy weapons, says McCain. There's no doubt that they, the militants or terrorists, need some kind of capability to reverse the battlefield situation, he says, which right now is in the favor of Assad. McCain's Syria photo op included rebel Kidnapper. A spokesman says, incident regrettable. McCain didn't know. So yeah, he decided to sneak into Syria for a photo op with rebel commanders, quickly going from publicity stunt to embarrassment with the revelation that one of the commanders in question was the head of the kidnapping ring. So there you go, kidnapping foreigners and holding them for ransom. 2 Bahraini soldiers fighting for Al-Nusra front in Syria. So at first they said that they were just activists or something. They said social networks circulated the news and clarified that the 2 killed belonged to the Bahraini Defense Forces. French intelligence report says Qatar financed terrorists from basically northern Africa. And in West Africa, says this Mujao, whatever, responsible for kidnappings of Algerian diplomats in April. So the Tuaregs, Ansar Dine, and Al-Qaeda received basically dollars from Qatar. And more big news, report says Syrian forces killed American from, I believe, Michigan, British citizen accused of fighting alongside the rebels. So American woman and British citizen fighting with the terrorists. So. But this isn't the first time. Remember Eric Harroun's father? I know for a fact he was passing information to the CIA. So this was the American jihadists or whatever. Remember him? Syrian militants may infiltrate Russia, says Federal Security Services. We expect that amidst armed conflict in Syria, the armed fighters and terrorists can infiltrate into our country and inside the illegal immigrants' flows, talking about Chechnya. So the deputy head of the security service further said illegal immigration is a means to destabilize Russia, and is saying that they're monitoring the national threat. It has been established beyond any doubt that special services of foreign states are using illegal migration channels to conduct intelligence and subversive activity to the detriment of Russian security. And they just caught a CIA there. They have to declare foreign agents, and companies like USAID have to declare themselves as foreign agents. They've had protesters trying to create instability, basically filing into the State Department and the embassy, working for the State Department, filing into the Russian embassy. So just like FEMIN and all these different types of groups, human rights groups. And of course, that's why Russia is so concerned about Syria too, is because it's going to affect them as far as all these terrorists going back and unleashing hell in Chechnya. Iraqis, Lebanese blame unrest on internal issues, not Syria's war. So, but to see this, look at this: Iraqis, Lebanese blame unrest on internal issues, not Syria's war. So, Syria's war is having an effect. But this is what I think. What's going on in Iraq is being done on purpose. Iraq is, and Lebanon, one of the 2 semi-allies of, unspoken allies of Syria right now. So they create all this unrest and instability, and of course that keeps them from doing anything to help Syria. So it is an internal issue, but I don't think these countries really want to admit that. It looks bad for Syria, who really doesn't have any choice over the matter, right? They're creating regional instability. That's the point. for regime change. Please join me in the next part. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.